Now Tsurugi lived an ordinary life until he was murdered by a customer. However, instead of dying for good, he awakens in a mysterious amusement park alongside other dead people. There they discover that they are trapped in a deadly game. To return to life, they must defeat the king of the park before time runs out. And while the others receive powerful weapons, now only gets a 1-star piece of equipment. Considered the weakest of the group, he will have to find a way to survive. But could this apparent weakness be hiding a potential that no one has noticed? The story begins with a man lying injured on the ground, blood dripping from his mouth. Above him, something dark approaches through the shadows. A muffled scream echoes, and before him appears the image of an amusement park illuminated by fireworks. A blue crystal staff gleams in the hands of a strange figure. Atop a throne, a rabbit king watches everything, a crown on his head and a staff in hand, surrounded by ceremonial fans. Before the throne, the wounded man finds himself surrounded by a true army of rabbits, each with a glowing star on its head. Terrified, he cannot understand what is happening. Suddenly, the scene changes to an ordinary residential building in broad daylight. Inside the apartment, the same man finishes getting dressed and wonders whether he will have enough money to last the month. He reassures himself that everything will be fine. Beside the bed, a bottle of pills catches his attention, infinite recovery medicine. He grabs his things and announces that he is leaving for work. Shortly afterward, he arrives at an ordinary house and rings the doorbell. A female resident answers, already impatient, asking who is knocking at the door. He politely introduces himself as now Tsurugi from the sales department of Idoku Pharmaceuticals. The woman rolls her eyes, annoyed by the arrival of yet another salesman. She complains that salespeople only know how to push products and challenges now to help her with her shopping if he really wants to sell her something. Caught off guard, now immediately agrees and asks what she needs. Still suspicious, she asks for only some milk. Without hesitation, now runs off to get what she requested. Standing alone at the door, the woman is surprised by the salesman's sudden enthusiasm. She shouts for him to bring the cheapest milk he can find and now immediately assures her that he will fulfill her request. A short while later, he returns with exactly what she asked for. Impressed, the woman comments that now is the straightforward type. He laughs and says he hears that all the time. She admits that she does not really trust supplements and asks whether he himself takes the medicines he sells. Then she questions whether those products actually work. Now becomes embarrassed and does not know how to answer, and the woman says that luckily for him, she is a very honest woman. The scene changes to the headquarters of Idoku Pharmaceuticals. Inside, his boss reprimands him, saying that kindness alone does not close sales. Now can only apologize. The boss goes even further and suggests that he simply quit his job since he has no talent for sales. Faced with the provocation, now is visibly shaken. His mind returns to a painful memory, his father lying in a hospital bed connected to machines while his mother cries beside his little sister. The sound of the heart monitor continues to echo in the background. Now watches his mother break down and silently promises that he will take his father's place. Back in the present, he begs his boss for another chance, promising to visit 1,000 houses a day if necessary. The boss gives in and proposes a test. Resolve a complaint from a difficult customer, now immediately accepts, determined to prove his worth. Without wasting any time, he runs out of the office. A coworker questions whether it is safe to send now since that customer is on the blacklist for assaulting someone at another store. The boss replies that this is exactly why he is sending Tsurugi. He thinks to himself that perhaps this time the young man will finally show some talent. Shortly afterward, now arrives at another house and rings the doorbell. Polite as always, he apologizes before even beginning to speak. Barely does he manage to say that he represents Idoku Pharmaceuticals when the customer reacts furiously. Without warning, the man plunges a knife into him, shouting about the supplements that had done nothing. Covered in blood, now here's the real reason behind the attack. The customer's wife did not get better from the medicine he sold him. A close-up shows the man's wife in the background, already dead. With tears filling his eyes, he realizes that there is nothing left to do. She is already dead. On the ground, beside the blood, all that remains is now Tsurugi's business card. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, the woman comments over the phone that she knows very well that the supplements do not work. Even so, she admits that Nao's attitude makes her want to buy them, and she plans to praise him as soon as he returns. But Nao is already lying on the ground, covered in blood, sitting alone against a railing at dusk. The woman's voice still echoes, asking someone to tell him that he is a great salesman, unaware that it is already too late. Suddenly, an unknown system confirms the death of Nao Tsurugi. The system begins calculating his entire life, adding negative points: his father's accident, his lack of results at work, and his death at the hands of a vengeful customer. The result is clear: his life receives the lowest possible rating, only 1 star. Even so, a signature weapon is about to be distributed. As a reward, he receives the 1,000 visits shoes. Confused, Nao does not understand what is happening to him. His eyes widen at what appears before him. A game system appears, searching for players for what comes next. Around him, other people are also gathered inside an amusement park. Still confused, Nao tries to understand. Just moments ago, he had been stabbed. Looking at himself, he uncertainly wonders if he really died. A strong man wearing a headband asks a woman beside him if she died too. Unsure himself, Nao murmurs that she probably did. The woman states that since everyone there is dead, this must be the afterlife. The man repeats, intrigued, that the afterlife really does seem to be like this. Sitting alone on the ground, now still cannot believe that he was killed by a customer. His mind returns to the memory of his hospitalized father, and he thinks about how much his mother will suffer when she hears about his death. Suddenly, a glowing figure begins to materialize beside him, drawing the group's attention. The headband-wearing man, whose name is Toyota, comments that another person has arrived, thinking the newcomer looks far too skinny to be a man. The blonde figure, still trembling, holds something against his chest, trying to compose himself. Lost, he asks where he is. The man complains that another guy has arrived, while the woman says that he looks completely useless. The blonde man can only let out an awkward huh, unsure of how to react. An uncomfortable silence settles between him and Now takes the initiative and explains that apparently this place is the afterlife. The young man is startled by the information. Polite as always, Now introduces himself as Tsurugi. The other man responds formally as well, saying his name is Tateshi. Curious, Now notices a lighter in Tateshi's hand and asks if he smokes. Up close, the object reveals 5 engraved stars and a wing design, completely different from the simple shoes Now received as his reward. Embarrassed, Tateshi tries to explain that it is not quite what it looks like. Before he can finish, a system announcement interrupts their conversation. All players have arrived, the match is complete, and a tutorial mission is about to begin. Intrigued, Now wonders, a mission. Tateshi asks whether this place really works like a game. The rules appear on the screen. To win, they must defeat the king of the amusement park. If the entire group falls 10 out of 10, the mission fails. They have 60 minutes to complete the challenge and return to the world of the living. Now wonders if they can really come back to life. Side by side, he and Tateshi advance through a narrow corridor with the feeling that this is in practice a deadly game. Suddenly, a giant rabbit appears, wielding an enormous hammer and preparing to strike them. Now's eyes widen at the attack. At the last second, his shoes glow and propel him away, saving Tateshi as well by carrying him in his arms. From a distance, Toyota and the woman watch the scene, shocked by the force of the attack. Someone shouts, unable to understand what is wrong with that rabbit. Still fleeing, Now tells everyone to run, relieved that he managed to dodge in time. As he runs, he remembers those shoes were called a signature weapon. The scene returns to the reward he received earlier, the 1,000 visits shoes, a bonus for completing his life. Seeing the rabbit approaching even closer, Tateshi shouts a warning, thinking that if it really is a weapon, perhaps it must be useful for something. Determined, Now leaps toward the creature, confident that he can defeat it. He strikes the rabbit's body, but the damage he causes is practically non-existent. Realizing that he is no match for it, he lets out a startled scream. The hammer hits him directly, sending him flying. Struck with tremendous force, he spits blood and collapses to the ground. The rabbit raises its foot, ready to finish him off. Lying there, exhausted and injured, Now can barely move. Without anyone expecting it, Tateshi's lighter ignites with a snap. Flames engulf the giant rabbit, which screams as it is consumed by fire. Within moments, the creature collapses, completely destroyed. Tateshi remains standing amid the flames, his arms crossed against his chest as if he had barely made any effort. Exhausted, he watches a small blue flame appear before him, recording his experience from the battle. Now watches everything with his mouth agape, unable to believe his friend's power. Intrigued by his own result, Tateshi wonders if he went a little overboard. Toyota and the woman run over to him, impressed, asking where he got that lighter. Tateshi explains that it seems to be a life completion bonus. He asked for a weapon, and it simply appeared in his hand. Realizing the coincidence, Now concludes that the lighter is also a weapon, just like his own shoes. But he does not understand why the attack power of each one is so different. Before they can rest, more small rabbits appear from another direction, drawing the group's attention. Toyota celebrates, now they have weapons to fight the enemies. Concerned, Now warns that each weapon has different power and that no one should attack carelessly. Ignoring his warning, the group charges at the small rabbits and defeats each one with a single blow. Intrigued, Now wonders why only his attack did not work the same way. Comparing the items, he notices that each weapon has a different number of engraved stars, and Tateshi's golden lighter shines the brightest of them all. Intrigued, he wonders what the real difference is between the group's weapons and his. Looking at his own shoe, he finds the answer, only a single star. Shocked, he finally understands why his attack was so weak. Without ceremony, the group concludes that the lower the number of stars, the weaker the weapon, and they lament with some disdain Now's bad luck. Little by little, a bitter smile forms on Now's face. His mind returns to a simple memory. Alone in his modest apartment, he finishes adjusting his tie before another ordinary day at work. Back in the present, still injured, he resignedly concludes that this is simply how things are. The image of the reward he received returns to his mind, the 1-star shoe. With a bitter smile, he sums it all up in one sentence. His entire life was in the end a low-rarity draw. Trying to cheer him up, Tateshi suggests that if his attack is low, perhaps another attribute is higher. He then points out something Now had not noticed yet, a gear in the corner of his vision. All he has to do is press it, Tateshi explains, to view his own stats. When he touches the symbol, a blue screen opens before Now, revealing his complete data. It displays his name, his exclusive weapon, the 1000-step boots, a rarity of only 1 star, and the attributes: Attack 1, Defense 5, Speed 10, Jump 10, and Luck 1. Now is shocked when he sees his attack stat. 1 point is far too weak, but he soon notices another detail: Speed and Jump are both at the maximum 10. Excited by the possibility, he wonders if his weapon might actually be a speed-type weapon. Unsure whether that is good or bad, Toyota suggests that everyone compare their own numbers. He shows his weapon, the one-hit wrench, 3-star rarity, attack 13, defense 5, speed 10, jump 10, and luck 3. Faced with the difference, now can only remain silent. Next, the woman reveals her own weapon, 2 stars with attack 9, defense 9, speed 10, jump 10, and luck 2. Toyota comments that it is simply worse in every way. She agrees, frustrated, saying that the situation is horrible. Curious, he turns to Now and asks what the stats of a 1-star weapon are. Unable to answer, Now simply covers his face with his hands in despair. Tateshi tries to comfort him, thinking there is no need to ask when the answer is already obvious. Suddenly, an attack comes straight toward the headband-wearing man. Without worrying much, Toyota dodges the attack. He then strikes the rabbit with ease. To his surprise, he levels up and his attack, defense, speed, and jump attributes all increase at once. Intrigued, he notices another message, a reward of 500,000 yen. The money scatters around him and Toyota is amazed by his own earnings. Now watches everything, shocked by the amount. Excited, Kawasaki shouts that she wants that money too and tries to grab it, but she is repelled by an electric shock, prevented from touching someone else's reward. Embarrassed, she explains that she only wanted to know whether everyone gets money when they level up. The item is revealed, 500,000 Japanese yen, which can even be used in the real world. Little by little, Toyota reveals his own reason for being there. He died after being hit by a vehicle while running from a lone shark. The memory shows Toyota desperately running toward a truck while being chased by the man collecting the debt. A new system announcement reminds the group that they have less than 58 hours remaining to complete the challenge and return to the real world. Toyota adds that even if they manage to return, everything would be useless without money. Beside him, Now notices Kawasaki, who also quietly admits that she wants money. He looks at the rest of the group, all silently dwelling on similar thoughts. From that moment on, the real hunt for experience begins. While the others attack, Now takes on the role of bait, trying not to get in the group's way. But alone, he senses a new danger approaching. Above Now, a gigantic mouth opens, about to devour him. Tense, he feels the danger getting closer and closer. Tateshi realizes that his friend needs help, but someone tells him to stop. Toyota also charges forward and lands a precise punch on the rabbit. Toyota questions why Tateshi, being 5 stars, does not leave the experience to the rest of the group. Kawasaki agrees, and he also asks who will take responsibility if someone gets hurt. Embarrassed, Tateshi stammers, not knowing what to say. Meanwhile, Now remains lying on the ground, covered by the rabbit's fluffy body as it bites him, realizing that he only held the group back. Shortly afterward, everyone leaves the Ferris wheel behind and heads to another area. On the way, they discuss whether they have already hunted everything in the area. Toyota complains that they are overdoing the hunting and even says that the problem is that everyone else is too slow. Walking side by side, Tateshi approaches Now. He apologizes for not being able to save him in time. Now replies that it is his own fault for being weak. Tateshi immediately disagrees. When everyone panicked, Now was the first one to stand up and fight. The scene returns to the moment when Now leaps at the giant rabbit, even knowing that he was weaker than everyone else there. Tateshi goes even further. To him, Now seems to be the strongest person in the group. Moved, Now asks if he really thinks that way. Back on the walk, Toyota asks when they are finally going to complete the mission. Kawasaki tries to remember the exact condition for winning. On the system screen, the tutorial mission reappears. Defeating the amusement park king is the only way to win, and eliminating the entire group means failure. There are only 30 minutes left to return to the real world. Suddenly, a distant sound catches Now's attention, the same melody from the fireworks he had heard before. Ahead of them, a huge gate opens, illuminated by fireworks, beginning some kind of parade. Rabbits with stars on their heads climb one after another along a spiral structure in the center of the park. They watch, thinking it all looks beautiful, and wonder if it is a parade. Little by little, the reason for all the brightness is revealed, a crown encrusted with stars atop a throne. Faced with the sight, Toyota mutters, unable to finish his sentence. On the throne, surrounded by servants and fans, sits a giant rabbit, crowned as if it were the true ruler of the place. Kawasaki concludes that, being the boss, the creature must give an enormous amount of experience. Toyota and Kawasaki exchange suspicious glances. Without waiting for the others, he charges forward alone, shouting that he will take down the king. Kawasaki complains, saying that she wants to participate too. As he runs, Toyota thinks that defeating the boss will surely make him level up, and the reward might even exceed the 500,000 yen from before. The Rabbit King's staff begins crackling with powerful electricity. Without warning, he fires a massive lightning bolt at Toyota. The attack hits him directly, engulfing everything in a blinding light. Now and Tateshi watch, paralyzed as they witness the result of the explosion. Among the debris, only a distorted silhouette remains. Everything indicates that Toyota is finished. A system notification confirms the loss. Only 9 out of 10 players remain. Time also moves mercilessly, with just under 28 minutes remaining. Atop the throne, the Rabbit King remains standing, his staff still surrounded by lightning, ready for the next attack. Desperate, Now screams for everyone to run. Without thinking twice, Now grabs Tateshi and shields him with his own body, causing both of them to fall. Now tries to reassure the group, insisting that he is fine. Around them, the two are surrounded by the bodies of their former teammates, already completely charred. The player counter drops. 6 out of 10 players remain. Amid the chaos, one of the survivors runs away, screaming in terror at the sight. Now orders Tateshi not to risk himself out there. Tateshi retorts, asking what he intends to do himself. Crying but determined, now declares that he's going to save the others. Tateshi watches, worried, unable to stop him. Now runs toward Kawasaki, trying to look confident, but deep down he thinks that he should have accepted his place as the weakest member of the group. Ahead, Kawasaki holds a frying pan, terrified as she sees her fallen companions. On the throne, the king's staff begins glowing again, charging up for another attack. Kawasaki screams, unable to move. Now throws himself toward her, trying to reach her in time. The attack hits him directly, engulfing him in a blinding light. As his body reacts on its own, his mind returns to old memories, the accident that left his father in a coma, and the job he finally managed to get afterward, but for which he never truly had any talent. His boss continues yelling at him, reminding him how he never fit into that job. Once again, the same bitter conclusion echoes in his mind. He lived a low-level life. Tateshi watches what happened, now has his arms raised, already charred. With tears in his eyes, he lets out a deep scream because he is in immense pain. Ahead, Kawasaki screams in terror, apparently having avoided the attack. From a distance, Tateshi watches helplessly and concludes that sheer willpower is not enough to save her. From the throne, the Rabbit King watches the survivors. One of the lightning bolts concentrates and heads straight toward Kawasaki, who runs desperately down the street. Kawasaki watches the scene in shock. Even in the face of the attack, now screams that it is not time to give up yet. Alone, he faces the Rabbit King and his entire army. Now shouts that he has not lost yet, calling the king a fat rabbit and promising to prove that his life is not low-level. Now runs in the opposite direction from the rabbit, provoking the creature to draw its attack. As he dodges, he notices something important about the enemy's attack. The lightning bolt is powerful, but it can only be fired in a straight line. Focused, he begins counting 1, 2, 3. He confirms that after firing, the attack takes more than 3 seconds to recharge. Now concludes that if they attack exactly during that opening, there is still a chance to win. Impressed, Tateshi praises the strategy, but his smile soon disappears. Now remembers his own stats, extremely low attack power despite having maximum speed and jumping ability. He realizes that he lacks exactly the attack power necessary to finish the fight. With no other option, he concludes that to survive, he needs to rely on the strength of the other two. Determined, he begs them for help. Now proposes a plan. He will take them to the king if they agree to fight by his side. Kawasaki hesitates, afraid that they will all be wiped out like that. He insists, promising that he will protect her. Unable to contain her anger, she snaps that he is nothing more than a low-level player, incapable of defeating even a single enemy on his own. The words catch now by surprise. Crying, Kawasaki reveals her own story. Her life was also rated at only 2 stars, and she had already accepted it as nothing but bad luck. She recalls troublesome parents and a terrible boyfriend and refuses to entrust her life to someone whose luck is even worse than hers. Through her tears, she admits that she cannot endure any more suffering. Faced with her refusal, Tateshi raises his golden lighter. He declares that he will make up for Nao's bad luck with his own 5-star status. Trembling but determined, Tateshi says that he will leave the courage to Nao. Nao thanks him for the contract they made. Confused, Tateshi asks what he is talking about. Together, the three advance once again toward the Rabbit King and his army. With Tateshi on his back, Nao prepares for his plan. The two agree on the plan. As soon as the next attack passes, he will run with everything he has. Tateshi confirms, determined. The king's staff begins charging with energy again. Ready for the impact, the two prepare themselves tense. At the right moment, Nao takes off, crossing the field at high speed. Halfway there, a swarm of small rabbits appears in the air. Tateshi shouts a warning, but Nao assures him that everything is under control. His attacks barely scratch the enemies, dealing only 1 point of damage at a time. Even so, he uses the rabbits themselves as support, jumping from head to head without stopping. He realizes that he can turn his weakness into an advantage. Since he cannot kill them, he does not waste time trying, he simply keeps running. One after another, the rabbits are left behind. Finally, Nao gets close enough to the king. Tateshi activates the golden lighter and the flame ignites with a snap. A gigantic explosion completely engulfs the king. Exhausted but victorious, Tateshi raises his fist in the air, impressed. A blue flame appears, granting Tateshi 100 experience points. The system screen displays the confirmation: mission complete. The reward is a lottery ticket, and the return to the real world will happen in 3 minutes. Before them, only a spectral flame remains, all that is left of the defeated king. Tateshi remains standing while Nao falls to his knees, exhausted. Unable to believe it, he quietly repeats, "Did they really win?" Suddenly, he feels something strange in his own body. Shocked, Nao realizes that his previously lost arm has returned, as if nothing had happened. Smiling, he wonders if completing the mission also completely heals them. If so, perhaps the others were saved too. Still high above the park, he and Tateshi look at the charred remains left behind by the battle, the reality weighing heavily on Nao's expression. Suddenly, Kawasaki appears running toward them, calling out to him. She confirms the sad reality: out of the 10 players, only the 3 of them survive. Without being too shaken, she immediately asks about the result of Nao's lottery. Confused, he repeats the word lottery, not understanding what she means. When he checks his own system, he finds an exclusive lottery available with a single ticket remaining. Without thinking much, he decides to use it. As the lottery spins, the same question returns to his mind: just like his own arm, were the others saved too? The result appears: he wins another pair of 1,000-mile boots which automatically merge with the weapon he already had. Surprised, he shouts that he got a duplicate. The new numbers appear on the screen, showing the effect of the fusion on his attributes. As a result, his stats skyrocket: attack, defense, speed, and jumping ability all increase considerably. Impressed, Kawasaki comments on how the fusion made his numbers skyrocket. She then casually reveals that she won 1 million yen. Shocked, now repeats the amount in disbelief. Leaning against him, Kawasaki declares that it can only be fate. She then asks if when they return to the real world he would go out with her. Suddenly, the mood changes completely. Just moments ago, she had despised him without a second thought, and now she's smiling sweetly. Embarrassed, now can only mumble that it is kind of complicated as a bright light engulfs everything around them. Suddenly, an explosion of fire sends now flying through the air, leaving him completely confused about what is happening. Amid the flames, only the charred remains of someone nearby are left behind. God forgive me, but at least it was the gold digger. Behind him, Tateshi grabs him tightly and lights the lighter right next to his face, warning him that there is no time for pointless conversation, only 3 minutes remain. Terrified, now asks why he is doing that. Before them, a system menu opens, displaying a saved outfit set called My Set 1. Tateshi formally introduces himself again as Tateshi Yume, now with a completely different appearance. He explains that he transformed using his own customized outfit, like in games where you can save your favorite outfits. Now can only say that this is not the time for that kind of conversation. Seriously, Tateshi admits that now may have already suspected it. He is not a beginner. He then reveals the real reason he had been moving through low-level areas. He was hunting for promising newcomers. And it was precisely with his 5-star luck that he found now. He calmly asks if there are any questions so far. Without hesitation, now asks why he killed Kawasaki. Smiling, Tateshi answers with a single word: selection. A memory emerges, Kawasaki still alive, angrily shouting that there were people with higher stars who were completely useless and that a person's worth cannot be measured solely by rarity, as if they were nothing more than a simple statistic. According to Tateshi, that was exactly the kind of judgment he applied when choosing whom to eliminate. Indignant, now retorts that no matter how much he tries to disguise it, what he did is still wrong. After all, Tateshi had enough power and wisdom to protect everyone. His expression hardens, filled with restrained sadness. Without warning, Tateshi grabs him by the arm and now asks why he would dare to do something like that. Without giving him a chance to respond, he throws now down the stairs. Now rolls down without stopping, screaming, unable to hold on. From atop the throne, Tateshi watches the fall and asks, almost bored, why. Still sitting on the throne, he groans in pain, complaining disdainfully that he hates having to babysit disposable playthings. Suddenly, Tateshi laughs and says he was only joking. He explains that he knew now wouldn't get angry if he acted serious and kind, and that killing Kawasaki was also just to annoy him. Still smiling, he insists that making now lose his temper was exactly the plan. A system warning appears. In 3 minutes, everyone will be sent back to the real world, at least temporarily. Surrounded by flames, Tateshi admits that he had been hoping for a fight to the death during these final minutes. Now crouches down, activating the blue glow of his boots, ready to react. Smiling, Tateshi makes an unexpected proposal. If they return to the real world, he might even become Nao's mentor. Furious, now immediately refuses the offer. Tateshi laughs confidently, claiming that he has never failed to get what he wants since he is a 5-star player. The system clock begins counting down. 3 minutes remain until the temporary return to the real world. Still engulfed in flames, Tateshi calls now by name. He warns that with his stats broken beyond the limit, now has only 3 minutes to survive and become his disciple. Tense, now glances at the timer without losing his concentration. Time continues to pass, showing 2 minutes and 59 seconds. Above him, the mouth of a flaming serpent begins to take shape. Surprised by the size of the flame, now can only mutter, "What?" Without hesitation, he plants his foot firmly on the ground. Now barely manages to escape the fire attack, feeling the heat pass dangerously close. As he flees, he notices something strange. The attack is slower than the Rabbit King's lightning, and his own body seems incredibly light. On the screen, his attributes appear side by side, showing the difference between before and after breaking the limit. Unable to believe his own performance, he wonders if this is what having a broken limit feels like. Behind him, Tateshi flies calmly, teasing him. Isn't he moving much better than when he was alive? Bringing a fire serpent close to Nao's face, he reveals another detail. Those serpents move at exactly the same speed as the Rabbit King's lightning, proving that Tsurugi has become faster. In his thoughts, Tateshi laments that Nao dodged that kiss. Annoyed, Nao yells at him to stop harassing him. Tateshi simply responds playfully, asking if he is serious. Smiling, he warns that trash like Nao has no right to an opinion. With no patience left, Nao can only break into a cold sweat at the provocation. Tateshi raises the lighter once more, releasing another wave of fire serpents. If Nao doesn't want his kisses, he'll have to dodge every single one of them. Leaping through the air, Nao escapes several consecutive attacks, leaving a blue trail behind him. Upon landing, he realizes in shock that even more serpents are coming and that they are even faster. Surrounded by flames, he can barely process the sheer number of attacks. Spinning through the air and dodging instinctively, he continues trying to keep his balance amid the fire. His concentration narrows, focusing on every movement. At the peak of his jump, he twists his body, attempting a counterattack in midair. But when he notices Tateshi's calm expression below, now realizes it is a trap meant to punish him the moment he lands. Tateshi's face lights up with a smile as he holds a small projection of Now in the palm of his hand, as if he were controlling Now's every movement. Furious, Now asks if he is serious. Is this how a 5-star player behaves? Tateshi simply smiles unfazed. In his thoughts, Now dismisses the offer of mentorship with contempt. He charges forward with a blue energy-infused kick, shouting that Tateshi is nothing more than a hunter of helpless rookies. Tateshi simply gives him a thumbs up, congratulating him on the attempt while using slang that makes no sense. Confused, Now demands that he speak in a way that people can understand. Tateshi just laughs, saying that it is basic gaming slang. He then reveals another detail: the weapons also function as shields. Annoyed, Now complains that he could have warned him beforehand. Tateshi taunts him. If that were enough to kill him, there would be no point in having him as a disciple. Covered in soot, Now retorts that even if he survives, he would never accept a murderer as his master. Tateshi approaches and warns him that he doesn't have a choice either. Now can only curse at him furiously. He summarizes the options: survive and become his disciple, or die as the trash he is. Faced with Tateshi's transformation, Now thinks in terror that he looks like a true final boss. Raising the lighter, Tateshi asks how Now plans to escape so many kisses at once. The flames fly toward Now, resulting in a massive explosion. Before Now, Tateshi transforms completely, gaining enormous wings made of fire. His eyes glow as he observes everything. Amid the golden explosion, a blue flash shines right at the center of the chaos. Now raises his own kick, breaking through the fire with the energy from his boots. He shouts that he will never simply block everything, that even a 1-star life has its own options. Impressed, Tateshi smiles and admits it was a good game. The system clock reaches the end, marking the final second before the temporary return. The two stare at each other from close range, ready for the final blow. At the exact moment the timer reaches 0, Now returns to the real world and smacks a coworker on the head. He finds himself back in an ordinary office. Confused, he mutters, "Huh," without understanding what happened. Around him, his coworkers are startled, whispering among themselves while someone lies collapsed on the floor in front of him. On his knees, his boss apologizes, saying he never imagined that the blacklisted client would actually pull a knife on him. Still lost, Now repeats the word knife, trying to understand. A narration reveals the truth. According to the manager, the man who tried to stab him was arrested. Unable to contain himself, Now shouts in relief that the police arrived in time. The cowardly boss begs him not to tell the board of directors that he knew about the danger and still sent Now there. After all, he has a family to support with 3 daughters. Little by little, Now wonders, could all of that have just been a dream? A gear icon appears before him, accompanied by a single word: no. Curious, he points at the air and asks his boss if he can see that gear too. Confused, the boss only mutters that he knows he is just another cog in the company's machine, but has no idea what Now is talking about. The answer is confirmed: it is real. With his finger, Now touches the symbol floating in the air, hearing a faint click. A system message appears before him. His rank is rookie and the next mandatory daily mission will begin in a little over 18 hours. Shocked, he repeats in disbelief, a mandatory daily mission. Still amazed by everything, he reflects that since there were other players, he expected to encounter many more people. His mind returns to the Rabbit King, and he wonders in fear if he will have to face those psychopaths every day from now on. Suddenly, something catches his attention. A screen opens showing a list of names, including Tateshi, who has sent a pending friend request. The message explains that it is now possible to share locations, form groups, and exchange direct messages. Intrigued, Now recognizes that screen in those names. They are the other players from the mission. Since winning the challenge brought him back to life, he imagines that they might have survived as well, and that he might actually be able to contact them. In front of his coworkers, he begins saying the names aloud and tapping the screen, trying to get some kind of reaction. His boss watches uncomfortably, commenting on how strange it looks. But nothing happens, neither when he touches the screen nor when he calls their names. A new idea occurs to him: why not search for the names on the internet? The search reveals shocking news. In March, at a restaurant, a woman attacked her ex-girlfriend Erika Kawasaki in the head and was charged with murder. Another news report appears immediately afterward. In a road accident, Saburo Suzuki died as a passenger in a car hit by a truck, and Taro Toyota died after being run over while crossing the street. Now slowly understands they all died in real life during the same week. The list of names appears before him again with one important detail: everyone except one. Suddenly, a coworker bursts into the office, shouting that there is an emergency. Startled, Now turns around. The manager asks if it is something from headquarters. The coworker clarifies, no, it is a gigantic order. They want to buy the company's entire stock. Intrigued, the boss asks who could possibly do that. This supplement is garbage, barely having any placebo effect. He then reveals the client's name, a man named Tateshi, who specifically requested that Tsurugi handle the sale. The name makes Now freeze instantly. A memory comes back to him. The day he handed his business card to Tateshi, apologizing for the delay and introducing himself as Tsurugi. At the time, Tateshi simply commented politely on how kind that was of him. Back in the present, Now decides he's not going. He wants nothing to do with a psychopathic rookie hunter. He remembers the previous events, nearly being killed by Tateshi's flames and the girl who had been kind to him. Back in reality, Tateshi's friend request remains pending on the screen. now admits to himself that he can no longer lie. That man pretended to be a helpless rookie just to watch others die and then killed the very people who had helped save him. If now had made even one wrong move, he would have been tortured to death as well. He also recognizes how insistently and disturbingly Tateshi had pursued him. For now, that man is the worst kind of murderer there is. But even so, he acknowledges something undeniable. He is also the strongest of them all. The system timer appears again, reminding him that the next mandatory mission is approaching. His mind returns to his hospitalized father with his sister holding their mother, while the sound of the machines continues to echo. He repeats to himself, "I can't die again." In the memory, Tateshi claims that he has never failed to get exactly what he wants. After all, he is a 5-star player. Back in the present, now considers it. If he goes to him, he will be walking straight into the trap. The news about Kawasaki returns to his mind, reinforcing the same fear. Going there would mean joining forces with a monster. At work, his boss grabs him by the shoulders in desperation, demanding that he go make the sale to Tateshi right now. After all, if they clear out the entire stock, the company would become more than just the #1 in the market. Alone at night, Tateshi sits in front of the window. On the other side, Tateshi looks at his contact list, waiting for a response to the invitation he sent to Tsurugi. A new screen appears, asking whether he accepts the invitation to join a guild. Determined, now declares he will accept. On the rooftop, staring down at the neighborhood below, he clenches his fists, his expression completely transformed. Meanwhile, Tateshi already assumes that refusing was never an option for a disposable plaything like him. For Tateshi, everything is going exactly as it should. Determined, now enters his home. His little sister is smiling, hugging a stuffed animal, and excitedly shouts that now is home. His expression softens, completely different from the tension of a few minutes earlier. He arrives at the small apartment where his family lives at night and greets his sister Natsu, commenting on how much her hair has grown since his last visit. She explains bluntly that longer hair is worth more money. Kneeling in front of her, now gently scolds her, reminding her that he and their mother should be taking care of the household finances. Confused, Natsu simply stares at him, not understanding why he is scolding her. He admits in his thoughts that he tried to sound tough when he said that, but the scene flashes back to a few hours earlier. At the office, now takes an ongoing call, introducing himself as Tsurugi. On the other end of the line is Tateshi, sitting at home beside the system screen, asking them to deliver 1 unit of the supplement to him immediately. Without hesitation, now interrupts him, "Please don't buy it." He repeats himself irritably, asking if Tateshi heard him correctly. On the other end, Tateshi simply smiles and hangs up. His panicked boss asks what he was thinking. Calmly now says that his shift is over and that he is going home. His boss can only stammer in disbelief. He admits in his thoughts that he just rejected Tateshi's invitation and that he might not survive the next daily mission. An explosion of fire fills the screen alongside the system timer. 17 hours and 59 minutes remain until the next mandatory mission. So that he won't have any regrets if he dies, he decides to visit his family. At the door, Natsu excitedly shouts, telling their mother that now is home. In his thoughts, he reveals the true reason for the visit. He has already left his life insurance, personal seal, and bankbook in easy-to-find places so that his family will be taken care of even if he dies. When he smells the air, he happily comments that it is the smell of his favorite curry. Smiling, Natsu says that normally, it is just simple onion curry with nothing else. Commenting that it is hard to expect quality from a dish made with only one ingredient, Natsu excitedly reveals that today is a day of celebration, so the curry has been made extra special with meat. The little onions and cows celebrate around the special dish, which is decorated with stars. Intrigued, now asks if that isn't a bit excessive just because he came home. Laughing, Natsu simply giggles, pretending not to understand what he is talking about. Hugging her stuffed animal, she teases him, "Doesn't the #1 salesman make a fortune these days?" He turns his face away, serious, still smiling, now suspiciously asks where she got that information. Suddenly, silver chains appear before his eyes and Tateshi's face emerges behind them. Through the chains, it becomes clear that he is watching everything from inside Nao's family's own home. Smiling, Tateshi says that he has already made himself at home there, affectionately calling Nao bestie. Nao's eyes widen, filled with fury, now grabs him by the collar. Frightened, Natsu calls out to her brother, not understanding what is happening. Now warns him not to involve his family. Tateshi repeats that disposable playthings have no right to veto. Now interrupts him, that only applies inside the game. Seriously, he threatens him. He could simply kill Tateshi right there before going to the next mission. Tateshi is surprised and admits that it actually sounds fun, but warns him right next to his ear that he shouldn't say things like that in front of other players, because it immediately gives away that he is a rookie. A revelation appears. Now it is only possible to die inside the game, since any death in the real world is corrected as if it were merely a system error. Tateshi clarifies, if Nao wants to protect his family, he needs to focus solely on killing him inside the game. Nao's eyes narrow as he absorbs every word. Smiling, Tateshi ends the threat with a single word, otherwise. He finishes the threat by asking Nao if he wants to see how the system reacts if he hurts his family. Curious, Natsu asks what the two of them are whispering about. Nao quickly turns his head, trying to hide it. Awkwardly laughing, he says that it's a work matter and therefore a secret. Beside him, Tateshi simply smiles silently. Suspicious, Natsu watches the scene unconvinced. On television, a report is being broadcast about a fugitive wanted by the police, identified as Agahimbara, whose whereabouts remain unknown. While washing the dishes, the mother comments that the murderer used to live in the neighborhood and that the police have been searching the area. Worried, she turns to Tateshi and asks if he wouldn't like to stay at their house. Now widens his eyes, speechless at the invitation. Seeing his expression, Natsu simply thinks that her brother is making yet another one of his jokes. Politely, Nao's mother offers to wash the dishes, suggesting that the others go ahead to the bathhouse. Tateshi hesitates, asking if she is sure. Smiling, he calls Nao to go there with him. Annoyed, Nao gets pissed off, while Natsu watches everything impassively. Tateshi teases him. Taking a bath together is the ultimate negotiation tactic, and asks with a smile if he doesn't want to go with him too. In his thoughts, Nao recognizes that Tateshi is enjoying himself just by seeing how much he hates it. Unable to hold back, he shouts that just because he's a 5-star, he shouldn't think everything will go the way he wants. Mockingly, Nao replies that since he's begging so sweetly, he has no choice and asks if they want to wash each other's backs. Without thinking twice, Tateshi says, "I accept," leaving Nao surprised. From a distance, the mother watches the scene and thinks emotionally that her sweet son isn't cursing. Excited, Tateshi grabs Nao by the arm, saying that he can't wait. Embarrassed, Nao simply yells for them to hurry up. By the end of the night, the two arrive at the bathhouse. Inside, sitting side by side, Nao and Tateshi wash themselves in silence, surrounded by the peaceful scenery of mountains and a lake in the background. Nao casually asks what Tateshi really wants. Tateshi says that his own wish has already come true. He wanted to discover what kind of life a 1-star player capable of surviving actually lives. He analyzes Nao, with such a lovely sister and such a kind mother, if he really is a 1-star, whoever chose him has terrible taste. Correcting himself, he concludes that no, Nao is undoubtedly a 1-star, and if he were the one choosing, he would do exactly the same. He changes the subject and asks if Nao remembers the 2-star woman he burned. A memory of Kawasaki emerges. She was screaming about her terrible parents and boyfriend, saying that she couldn't take the suffering anymore. According to the narration, regardless of the facts, she believed that all her misfortune was someone else's fault, and that was exactly why she resorted to cruel methods just to survive. Tense, Nao simply listens in silence. Tateshi then declares, but Nao can't choose that path. He recalls Nao's story. When a debt-ridden father is hospitalized, his son has to start working as soon as he graduates high school, and you can't call parents struggling financially terrible. He analyzes it, the fact that Nao insists on selling questionable supplements despite being a terrible liar, and the fact that he can't simply drown him right there in the bathtub to kill him. All of this only happens because his love for his family forces him to live as if he were in some kind of good guy challenge. He sums it up, an apparently happy young man whose misfortune doesn't make anyone feel sympathy. That is what a true 1-star is. Tateshi also asks if he really intends to keep attempting the daily mission by playing in such a nice way, and mockingly suggests that it would be much better to become that serial killer's apprentice. Nao lowers his gaze, deep in thought. He lands an elbow on Tateshi as if asking him to move away. Okay, that position is pretty suspicious. The scene cuts back to an old memory. Nao's father was hit by a drunk, unlicensed driver. He protected his 2 children with his own body, collapsing badly injured right in the middle of the crosswalk, while people around them screamed, not knowing what to do. Nao holds his sister in his arms while watching his father lying seriously injured on the ground. The people around them ask if they are okay, while someone tells them to call an ambulance. Someone else calls the ambulance, reporting a traffic accident, and panic takes over Nao's face as he remembers his own father. The driver responsible, showing no remorse whatsoever, gets out of the car shouting and blaming Nao's own father for crossing at the crosswalk, even though the light was green. Suddenly, the same man freezes in shock. Consumed by rage, young Nao lunges at the driver, determined to take justice into his own hands. His kick lands squarely, sending blood flying through the air. Standing over the fallen man, he stares at him with a cold gaze, showing no hesitation about continuing. He looks to the side and sees that there is a passenger inside the car that hit his father. He gets into the car and punches the man in the face, leaving him barely able to react. He presses the man's face against the car window. From a distance, his little sister watches everything, crying and calling for their father. The reflection of the scene hits him. He finally sees what he is about to become. From his sister's point of view, he appears extremely violent, still beating the driver inside the car. Kneeling on the crosswalk, she cries in terror. Looking at the situation with a sad expression, Nao finally restrains himself. Back in the present, already in the bathtub, he tells Tateshi that thanks to his sister, he managed to avoid becoming a murderer that day, and that his father's debt came from a loan taken out to pay his own employees during a crisis that nearly destroyed his company. That is why he says he intends to continue following his own rules in this challenge. Without further explanation, he gets up, saying that he will complete the daily mission alone without Tateshi's help. Watching him walk away, Tateshi comments resignedly that his negotiation in the bathhouse failed. Alone, he lets out a quiet laugh, admitting that he expected to see him grow stronger by becoming enraged, but he remembers how Nao reacted to his attack in the other reality. Still impressed by the memory, Tateshi's heart races, pounding hard at the sight of the young Nao's fury. Back in the bathtub, he reacts strangely to his own memory, muttering awkwardly, "No, no." Still smiling, he comments that since this isn't the bathtub in his own house, he prefers to restrain himself. Later that night, the group says goodbye in front of the staircase leading to the family home. The mother insists, asking if he really isn't going to stay the night since he has finally returned home. Nao replies that he has work the next day. Excited, Tateshi waves goodbye, warmly saying farewell to Natsu. She simply stares at him seriously, showing no reaction while hugging her stuffed animal. Confused, he lets out a huh, unable to understand the girl's coldness. As he walks away, Tateshi asks now if he did something to make her hate him. Without holding back, now replies that it's probably because he gives off a perverted vibe. From the doorway of the house, Natsu watches the two walk away, still suspicious. A close-up reveals Tateshi's intense, almost disturbing gaze. From a distance, the mother waves, wishing them a safe trip home. Hugging her stuffed animal, Natsu mutters that his gaze was really strange, feeling a shiver down her spine. Time passes and the neighborhood's routine continues as normal. During a casual conversation, the woman from the beginning comments that the man was already known around there, and that perhaps, once arrested, he will finally receive the proper treatment. Now jokes, saying that from the perspective of someone who was almost stabbed, there isn't much sympathy left for that kind of argument. The two laugh together. Alone, he checks his system screen, thinking that it must almost be time for the next mission. The counter shows the exact moment. Only 1 second remains before the mandatory daily mission begins. Just a few hours earlier, the same counter had still shown 14 hours of free time. Already walking away, Tateshi warns that unfortunately they probably won't meet during the next day's daily mission. Their levels are too far apart now. Intrigued, now remembers that even so, Tateshi appeared during the tutorial mission. Tateshi explains that it was a rare exception requiring an absurdly expensive item, something that normally isn't worth it. He explains how the next missions work. From now on, his fighting companions will always be other players who survived their own tutorials, regardless of whether they chose to fight or flee. Smiling, Tateshi concludes that because of this, daily missions are usually peaceful as long as there isn't some lunatic around. Now remains silent, taking in the disguised warning. Time passes and back at work, the woman comments with relief that at least he managed to make it out of all that alive. She encourages him. Life really throws all kinds of things in our path, but since he's an honest guy, he just needs to keep moving forward. Now smiles sincerely and lightly for the first time in days. The system clock finally reaches 0. Back in the game world, he responds with an enthusiastic yes sir, ready for whatever comes next. Beside him, Tateshi appears smiling, encouraging him with a that's the spirit. As he moves, now walks away from the pervert. Furious, he shouts that he knew Tateshi would show up again. Calmly, the other replies that expensive items are nothing but pocket change to him. Raising his hand, Tateshi declares that this time he won't lift a finger until everyone else has been eliminated. Still smiling, he tells now that he can do whatever he wants. His gaze narrows, focused. Suddenly, a man attacks him with a sword, but now easily dodges, only getting grazed. He moves away from the enemy, crouching in the middle of the arena. A muscular man covered in scars advances with a knife, shouting at now to stop dodging. He only wants the experience and at least a little money to escape. Wounded in the face, now holds his cut, recognizing something in that expression. A memory surfaces. That same face appeared in the report about the wanted fugitive identified as Agahimbara. Suddenly, now steps on something. When he looks back, his gaze freezes. Countless lifeless bodies are scattered across the ground. In the distance, Tateshi appears behind Agahimbara and comments that now adapted quickly. Few people realize that it's also possible to eliminate other players first and take all the experience for yourself. Agahimbara, already walking away, grumbles, unable to understand what his problem is. Smiling sinisterly, Tateshi declares that he will make him his disciple too. The criminal's face twists with fear. A new system screen appears, bringing together the players in the match. Terrified, they sense the danger that man represents, even though they don't understand exactly why. Surrounded by a shadow shaped like a gigantic wolf, Tateshi explains his logic. Criminals are easier to deal with since they know they shouldn't pick fights they can't win, so they prefer to attack only the weakest. Politely, Agahimbara introduces himself to the group. Tateshi describes him as a new disciple. Since his other pupil is too kind, making him somewhat clumsy, he went looking for a rival to help him grow. On the screen, the details of the new mission appear. Defeating the Disco King is the condition for victory, and eliminating the entire group means failure. Of 10 players, only 3 remain, and there's 1 hour to complete the challenge and return to the real world. In the center of the hall, the boss of the round appears, an extravagant dancer covered in glitter standing beside a gigantic disco ball. Excited, Tateshi shouts for everyone to hurry up and complete the day's mission. The Disco King springs into action, showing off his moves with style. Intrigued, Agahimbara asks who this Disco King is, while now watches everything from behind him. The boss advances with a spinning kick, attacking with force. Complaining about the crazy guy watching him, Agahimbara decides to keep going anyway, charging forward to try to steal all the experience for himself. Out of nowhere, now rushes forward and kicks the killer, causing him to take the Disco King down with him. Agahimbara coughs up blood, injured, while a voice behind him simply says, "Hey." Now continues his attack with a high kick, taking an experience point. He confronts the other man. It's safe to assume that he was the one who killed those people, right? Cowering, the criminal thinks in terror that this kid is also crazy in his own way. Breaking into a cold sweat, he decides that under these circumstances, he needs to protect his own life above all else. He shouts that they didn't kill anyone, that the monsters in the place were responsible. Now strikes Agahimbara with another blow, sending him flying. Spinning through the air, he continues attacking without stopping. On the screen, his attributes increase. He reaches level 2 with attack, defense, speed, and jump all increased, along with a reward of 500,000 yen. Amid the money falling around him, now directly accuses Agahimbara. He's the only one in the group still holding a knife. Clenching his teeth, the criminal reluctantly admits that it makes sense. Crouching calmly among the fallen bodies, Tateshi lights his lighter and wonders with a smile if Tsurugi had realized the truth. With a double strike, now hits two of the star-marked enemies at the same time, each earning another experience point. The narration reveals the reason for such ease. The enemies he eliminates with a single blow are the same level as the rabbits that used to defeat him effortlessly. Suddenly, he notices something approaching. The true boss finally appears. The Disco King emerges imposingly, covered in lights and glitter. Without hesitation, now charges into the confrontation. He's going to destroy this boss by beating the crap out of him. At the end of the battle, a new reward screen appears, now levels up twice in a row, reaching level 4, and the mission is officially completed, earning a lottery ticket. His equipment also evolves. The 1000-step boots automatically activate a new broken limit, raising his attributes even further. On the screen, Nao's final attributes appear in full, showing just how much he has evolved since the beginning. Smiling, Tateshi comments that the survival rate of a tutorial like that is less than 1%, and that after overcoming such terrible odds, it's possible to grow without limits. With his back turned, Nao sees the system warning. The temporary return to the real world will happen in 3 minutes. Still injured, Agahimbara crawls across the ground, begging him to wait. After all, he's still recovering. Desperate and covered in blood, he shouts that he has a family too. Without hesitation, Nao kicks him in the face. Damn, doesn't this protagonist ever punch? He solves everything by kicking. From the side, Nao coldly replies, what a coincidence, he has a family too. Standing over the fallen body, he pins him to the ground with his foot. In his thoughts, he reflects, just like all the people that man has already killed. Tateshi approaches from behind, resting his arm on Nao's shoulder and teasing him. Wasn't he the one trying to play the good guy? He insists, asking how Natsu would feel if she found out that her own brother was a murderer. Still pinned beneath Nao's foot, Agahimbara whimpers, agreeing with everything the master says. Desperate, he directly begs Tateshi to save his disciple. Mockingly, Tateshi points at him and declares, if one of his disciples lets himself be killed by someone so pathetic, then he doesn't need him anymore. He's disowned. Cowering beneath Nao's shoe, the man cries, slowly understanding his own fate. Tateshi turns to Nao and finally asks what his excuse is for not simply killing him. The answer is surprising. He has already sent a friend request to Agahimbara. Confused and still injured, the man repeats the word friendship, not understanding. On the system screen, the confirmation appears. A friend request from Tsurugi with the option to accept or decline, along with a warning that from then on, they would be able to share their locations and form a party. Nao explains, by becoming friends, they will be able to share each other's locations and form a party together. Finally, he imposes his own conditions. Now warns that if he doesn't turn himself into the police as soon as he returns to the real world, he will kill him. If he dares to argue, he'll kill him. Threateningly, Now warns that if he refuses the friend request, he'll kill him right there. Panicking, Agahimbara immediately agrees, repeatedly begging them to let him be their friend. Suddenly, Agahimbara's hand catches fire. Nao's eyes widen, reflecting the glow of the flames. Engulfed in fire, the man screams, begging not to be killed. With his back turned, already walking away from the flames, Tateshi mutters to himself. By becoming a prison guard, he could uphold justice without having to kill anyone, and that way his sister would be happy. Smiling, Tateshi agrees that it's a good idea. In a low voice, he mutters that it would be better if he himself simply didn't exist. On the ground, all that remains is Agahimbara's charred body, still smoking. Now calls out to Tateshi, who answers with a simple. From the side, he seriously thanks him. This catches Tateshi by surprise. He confesses. He intended to take responsibility for keeping that man alive, but now ended up taking that burden off his shoulders. Now reflects, even though he doesn't approve of hunting down newcomers, he no longer feels that he has the right to judge him for it. Unable to understand, he shouts, annoyed by the way Tateshi is looking at him. Tateshi's face remains expressionless as he stares back at him. Mockingly, he asks Now to stop thanking him since he gets stronger when he's angry. He changes the subject. He asks him to hurry up and add him as a friend since deep down he also wants to hurry to the player's city. Confused, Now repeats the name, not understanding what he's talking about. Smiling, Tateshi extends his hand, waiting for confirmation of their friendship. Finally, he says one last serious sentence. That game has already been deciphered far beyond what Now imagines. The counter reaches 0, confirming the temporary return to the real world. Already at the train station, Tateshi explains that it is possible to reach the player's city from any station. Intrigued, Now repeats the information, not quite understanding. Tateshi shows a special pass stored in his item menu, explaining that all he has to do is use it. He passes through the ticket gate, casually saying goodbye. Confused, Now widens his eyes, not understanding what happened. In front of him, only a bluish glow remains where Tateshi was a moment ago. Shocked, he mutters that the other guy simply disappeared. Not knowing what to do, Now watches the subway. Around him, no one seems to have noticed anything strange at all. Intrigued, he wonders, did nobody notice? He concludes, surprised. The system doesn't just erase the fact that he died, it seems to correct things like this as well, adjusting reality around everyone. Touching a small gear icon, he mutters that this must be the pass. A screen opens offering two options, the unlimited pass or 1.5 million yen in cash. Shocked, he repeats the amount aloud, unable to believe it. He finally understands this must be the reward for leveling up, but can he really withdraw that amount? Nervously, he slides his finger along a bar on the screen, adjusting the amount and presses the withdrawal button. A bill comes flying out of the machine, and he gets excited when he sees that it is a real 1,000 yen bill. Still suspicious, he examines the bill closely, afraid that it might be fake. Determined to test it, he inserts the bill into a vending machine. The machine accepts the money without any problems, dispensing a drink. Excited, he drinks it all at once, confirming that is real money. Behind him, Tateshi watches the scene impatiently and kicks him. On the other side of the ticket gate, Tateshi teases him, calling now a broke loser. Sulking, he simply repeats that he already apologized. Looking at his own past, now notices something strange. It says Spirit Realm, along with information about his own age at the time of death. Could that place really be the world of the dead? Suddenly, he is dragged away by a current of energy, speeding through everything at incredible speed. His eyes close for an instant. When he opens them, a completely new and colorful scenery is reflected in them. A notice appears before the two of them. This is the area known as Player City. Walking through neon-lit streets, the narration explains, it is a city where only players who have already survived 2 near-death experiences can gather, a place commonly known as Butterfly District. In the distance, a cherry blossom tree decorated with stars announces a special event, Hunt the Flowers of Rebirth, before the end of the month. Standing before a huge illuminated torii gate, now comments on how this afterlife looks like a futuristic city. Tateshi philosophizes, if sufficiently advanced science is indistinguishable from magic, then the opposite should also be true. The two descend a staircase. Right ahead, a traditional festival cart catches Nao's attention. Excited, the vendor offers the district's famous butterfly candy for only 3,000 yen each. Shocked, Nao repeats the price in his head. Before him, a bright and ethereal butterfly floats in the air, far too beautiful to exist in the real world, and now, after all, he has money to spare. With his mouth watering, he cannot resist and grabs the candy. Satisfied, he thinks it is a well-deserved reward for his hard work. The vendor smiles and thanks him for the purchase. As soon as Nao walks away, the vendor's smile turns into something more malicious. In his guild's group chat, he tells his colleagues that he sold a 500 yen candy for 3,000, probably to a newbie. Another member thanks him for the tip and suggests luring Nao to his own bar, promising to cover 10 fights a day and even give him extra experience in exchange. Excited, they agree to get him drunk and take everything he has. Alone, the vendor is already thinking about what else he could sell without noticing a hand approaching from behind. It is Tateshi who appears and grabs the man's head tightly, asking with a cold smile, even considering the work of dipping those infinite butterflies in sugar, charging 3,000 yen for something that costs about 10 yen is a bit too much of a scam, isn't it? Terrified, the vendor can only stammer Tateshi's name, unable to explain himself. Embarrassed, the vendor can only mumble an apology. Tateshi reassures him, saying that everything is fine. In fact, he even thanks him for the situation. In secret, he reveals the real reason. His disciple is dirt poor, so a little over 1 million yen was already enough to lower his guard. Completely unaware of this, Nao walks excitedly down the street, amazed by the lights around him. Tateshi asks him to help with something without giving many details. The two arrive at a sophisticated bar, where a cocktail called Infinite Breakthrough is served, decorated with a glowing butterfly. Amazed, Nao watches as the alcohol transforms into butterflies floating before them. The bartender explains that the establishment is simple, charging only 2,000 yen for unlimited drinks. Intrigued, Nao asks if they can really drink without limits. Tateshi confirms it excitedly, inviting them both to enjoy themselves as much as they want. He grumbles that being so cheap, the place can barely even be called a bar. Raising his glass, he proposes a toast to making peace and to the friendship between the two of them. Without much enthusiasm, Nao simply raises his glass as well, joining the toast. Curious, he asks if it is possible to open stores like this in the spirit realm. The bartender admits that he simply put up a sign without asking anyone for permission. Nao says that should not be legal. Laughing, Tateshi counters, if we're going to get into that, how do you think they declare taxes on level rewards? Nao can only admit, point taken. He takes the opportunity to ask if there are jobs that only exist in that world. Tateshi confirms with a smile, from acting as an intermediary for missions to paid escort work. Scenes of people celebrating, surrounded by money flying through the air, illustrate just how profitable this market can be. He reveals another impressive detail: tutorial participation tickets like the one he used to join now can be worth 10 million yen each. Shocked, Nao calculates, that's 5 times his annual salary from a single sale. Tateshi continues, and that's still a low price since demand for tutorials is small. The better the rare items from a mission, the higher the level required to participate. He sums up the logic: anyone who wants to get truly rich only needs to focus on climbing the ranks. A diagram appears showing progression from 2 to 5 stars, with the amount of money increasing at each level, and according to him, upon reaching the highest rank, it is possible to participate in the so-called final mission. A grand image shows Nao holding a shining golden trophy surrounded by light. Finally, the most impactful revelation of all: they say the reward from this final mission is capable of granting any wish. The revelation still echoes in Nao's mind. Could he use it to heal his own father? But when faced with the image of the Rabbit King, a new concern takes hold of him. If his level rises, his enemies will surely become stronger as well. The scene changes to Natsu at home, smiling excitedly as she hugs her stuffed animal. Seriously, Nao wonders if he dies, who will protect his family. Looking at his balance, nearly 1.5 million yen, he reflects that he is already earning more than enough. Is it really necessary to take such a risk just to climb the ranks? He mutters, somewhat unconvinced, that he will think about it. Tateshi immediately interrupts. For him, thinking about it simply isn't an option. He insists, now needs to drag himself all the way to the highest rank, even if it nearly kills him. Now gives a crooked smile, irritated by the insistence. He complains, can't Tateshi at least once communicate without resorting to threats? If he can't even do that, perhaps that 5-star life isn't all that special after all. Tateshi drinks, pleased with himself. Suddenly, he calls the bartender over and asks him to prepare the shot game. Nervous, the employee immediately agrees. A hand approaches a small shot glass. Breaking into a cold sweat, the bartender thinks about the price of those shots. He reveals in terror they are absurdly expensive and are not included in the unlimited drink promotion. A sign at the bar confirms drinks are unlimited, with the exception that certain items are excluded. Meanwhile, Tateshi quietly laughs, amused by the scene. He thinks to himself that now is so irritated that he is acting like a child. A golden butterfly lands on a glass of whiskey, signaling the start of the shot game. Confidently, now holds the glass and warns that he will only play if Tateshi is the one paying. That is, as long as they do not mind being scammed. Tateshi and the bartender exchange alarmed glances. Without being fazed, now warns no one should try to scam someone at a party that was supposed to be a reconciliation celebration. Tateshi smiles maliciously, impressed. He admits, wow, you got me. Tateshi recalls now walking through the futuristic city and reveals the entire plan. He expected now to become complacent and weak after making so much easy money, so he planned to use that scheme to turn the tables on him. He used the candy cart vendor and the bartender to try to trick him. Tateshi continues, impressed. He never imagined now would deliberately play the fool just to lure him into his own trap. That's how a true disciple of his should behave. Blushing now thanks him, saying he owes everything to his master, even though he is a bastard. In the background, the bartender can only wonder what is wrong with those two. Tateshi announces that he is going home. While drinking, now sarcastically asks if he is finally free of him. The answer comes coldly no, and mysteriously he warns that next time now himself will come looking for him. Tateshi's image begins to fragment into tiny blue pixels, signaling the end of the experience. Now simply watches in shock. Breaking into a cold sweat, now wonders what all of this means. A disturbing vision appears in his mind, flames, screams, and praying hands, and amid all of it Natsu hugging her stuffed animal, all alone. Terrified, he mutters, could it be? His face contorts with worry. Without wasting any time, he calls his mother. Anxiously, he waits, begging her to answer. Desperate, he insists, come on, pick up. On the other end, his mother finally answers sleepily, with Natsu sleeping beside her in bed, and asks what is going on. Alarmed, he warns her, the next time Tateshi appears, she must not open the door under any circumstances, and she needs to call him immediately. Confused, she asks if the two of them had a fight. Embarrassed, now only mutters that they didn't, that it's kind of complicated to explain. He then checks through the system and sees that Tateshi is currently in a completely different location. On the screen, his friends list shows Tateshi's name, along with a map indicating his current location, marked by a star. Relieved but still tense, he acknowledges to himself that he had been putting on a tough act, but in reality, he had always been very afraid of Tateshi. With his back turned, he asks his mother to let him know as soon as Tateshi shows up there. The call ends on the phone screen. Back at the bar, the bartender comments, becoming a sacrifice to a cursed god is rough. Now remarks that coming from a bar that scams people, that must be pretty serious. He changes the subject. Since now is looking for work around there, he warns that without joining a guild, he risks being lynched. As a way of apologizing for the earlier trap, he offers to introduce him to a guild. Alarmed, now repeats the word lynched, thinking that since the law means nothing there, it seems more like an underworld controlled by mafias. He reflects worriedly, if he is not careful, he could end up getting involved with extremely dangerous people. It is better to think carefully before acting. Suddenly, now is startled when a glass bumps against his. At the counter, a young man calls him kid, catching his attention. Curious, he simply looks at him, not understanding. Excitedly, the stranger introduces himself. If he is looking for a guild, why not join the Blue Shadows? He reveals that they are about to head out for a rerun event, a treat hunt, a 2-star event, open even to beginners. Smiling suggestively, he asks if Now would like to spend the night with him. The bartender stares at them in disbelief. He warns Now it is better to stay away from that teacher's guild known as Cageman. Intrigued, he thinks to himself, it seems like he attracts strange people wherever he goes. Suspicious, he questions the young man's claim, living off royalties really. An announcement appears on the screen. The rerun event, titled Operation Hunt for the Flowers of Rebirth, remains available until the end of April. The narration explains, it is a beginner-oriented mission, bringing back an event that had already taken place before. The details appear. To win, participants must evacuate through their own escape points before the deadline of April 30, collecting glowing cherry blossoms to exchange for items. Amid a landscape covered in cherry blossoms, the current scene appears, and there he is. Crouching down, Now carefully collects petals into a bag, quietly and peacefully picking them up one by one. Holding a glowing petal between his fingers, he looks at it with a completely unimpressed expression. The scene flashes back to a few hours earlier. At the bar, Now directly confronts the man from before. The owner of that bar warned him to avoid working with him. Does he know why? Smiling calmly, the other man responds, probably because everyone who joins his guild ends up getting lynched. Both Now and the manager are shocked and can only repeat, "Wait, what?" He clarifies, lynched by the mercenary unit of the Thousand Lanterns Guild, which, by the way, that very manager is also a member of. Panicking, the bartender defends himself, saying that he is also a victim in that situation. A dark image appears, a silhouette wielding a katana beneath the glow of a golden emblem bearing the guild symbols. The narration explains the Thousand Lanterns Guild is nothing more than a massive organization like a mafia, and anyone who fails to pay for their protection gets lynched. A violent scene reinforces the warning. A man screams, tortured and surrounded by blood. The blue-streaked-haired girl explains further. They monopolize profits this way, making it so that only the rich can hire mercenaries, something that deeply irritates her, which is why she prefers to work on her own. Intrigued, Now wonders to himself if her eye patch might be the result of some confrontation with that guild. His thoughts return to Tateshi. Even though he is so powerful, does he simply ignore this mafia-dominated world? He remembers an old phrase, "The weak have no right to veto." Seriously, Now recognizes that Tateshi is exactly the kind of person who would encourage this chaos rather than stop it. He acknowledges to himself that he knows he is walking on a dangerous tightrope, but the memory of Natsu smiling and hugging her stuffed animal appears in his mind. If he abandons that girl there, he will never be able to look his sister in the eyes again. Determined, he declares he'll do it. On the screen, the mission details appear again. Evacuate through the escape points before the April 30 deadline while collecting glowing cherry blossoms. Already at the mission location, Now is surprised by the beauty of the scenery around him. Amazed, he mutters that it is beautiful. Beside him, the girl agrees. Some players even organize picnics to admire the flowers near the exits. Intrigued, Now thinks about those so-called exits, feeling that this definitely does not look like a deadly game. She points to the checkered mats scattered across the grass, explaining that they are precisely the mission's exit points. One of the mats lights up, revealing the word exit. She continues, after that all they have to do is collect as many glowing petals from the cherry blossom trees as possible. When Now touches a floating petal, he sees the counter increase, marking another point. Finally, she asks him to check the event's item exchange page, calling him kid. He awkwardly corrects her, actually he is 20 years old. The screen opens, revealing that the desired item this time requires no less than 10,000 petals to exchange. A sign presents the item, the Yamaman massage nicknamed Suramomi-kun. On the screen, the small winged ghost appears in detail with its price marked at 10,000 petals. Confused, Now repeats the word Yamaman, surrounded by question marks. The girl smiles mysteriously. She explains it is short for Underworld Monsters Yamaman. According to her, there are 151 in total, and whoever manages to collect them all will. Now interrupts her, enough with the explanation, he just needs to collect the petals, right? She adds anyway that there is also a cleaning Yamaman, showing both the massage and cleaning versions, each costing 10,000 petals. Now comments that they seem pretty practical, the kind of things that sell themselves without needing advertising. She confirms, exactly, and selling just one can easily earn around 20 million yen. Shocked, Now exclaims, 20 million, that's even more expensive than a 5-star tutorial entry ticket. She explains it's because demand is high but supply is extremely low. She can only mutter a wait before Now takes off running. Impressed, she comments on how fast he is. With dollar signs sparkling in his eyes, he thinks that the legs he developed working in sales are finally paying off. But then he wonders if anyone can do this, why is the supply so low? When he touches a petal, he frowns, intrigued. Disappointed, he realizes it's just an ordinary petal, was the one before just reflecting the sunlight. He tries again, picking up another and then another, always with the same disappointing result. Only 2 ordinary petals remain in his hand. He mutters in disbelief, it can't be. The girl confirms seriously, exactly. It's the tedious and exhausting struggle of trying to find 10,000 4-leaf clovers in a single month. She continues, it's an event with a daily quota of 333 petals, which practically bars anyone who has a job. The reward is only rare because the event itself is terrible. She concludes that's why most people give up and settle for underworld dumplings, a much cheaper alternative that costs only 2 petals. Now finally understands that's why the market price reaches 20 million. Even so, he grits his teeth, sweating coldly, determined not to give up. He had always lived assuming that he had no luck whatsoever. Even when Natsu, still a child, asked for a 4-leaf clover, excitedly showing him a picture book. Relying on luck was never an option for him. Bent over the grass, he stretches out his hand, thinking, therefore the most efficient method is. In his hands, a 4-leaf clover gleams beneath the golden sunlight, proof that in the end he had always relied on his own effort rather than luck. A glowing petal appears in his hand, surrounded by a flash of light. Using all the speed he has acquired, he races across the field, collecting another petal. His strategy becomes clear, a true grid sweep, covering every inch of the area at high speed without leaving a single corner untouched. Radiant with excitement, he celebrates his victory, shouting and asking how things are going on Cageman-sensei's side. Sitting down, she remains completely absorbed in her own work, drawing on a tablet, oblivious to everything around her. Sweating without taking her eyes off the screen, she warns him she's buried in work and can't even. On the drawing, a character slowly takes shape. She asks him to simply ignore her and continue collecting the flowers. She promises to buy everything from him, paying above market price. Now simply watches in silence, not knowing how to respond. He comments that if she's so busy that she can't even move, perhaps she shouldn't be drinking right now. She simply retorts, don't say that. Suddenly, three strangers approach, a masked man, an energetic blonde, and a girl with ribbons. Recognizing CageMine as the manga artist, they ask for an autograph, promising to resell it later on some second-hand website. The girl threatens him if she won't agree. How about joining the Thousand Lanterns Guild and paying a tribute? Extending her hand toward Now. Intrigued, he thinks, these guys. A golden lantern-shaped pendant appears up close, confirming it. It really was the Thousand Lanterns Guild. The girl asks who that young man is he her boyfriend? The masked man says that no one would be interested in someone as strange as CageMine, so he must be a rental boyfriend. Confused and irritated, Now can only think, what the hell is this? A dark memory invades his mind, the image of a tortured man covered in nails beneath the shadow of a hooded figure. Gathered together, the three pose confidently, all displaying the same golden guild pendant. From the side, Now evaluates them. They look incredibly weak. He quickly corrects himself. He can't lower his guard. Maybe they're just pretending to be. Without being intimidated, he confronts the trio. Just because they're brats doesn't mean they can be so rude. The blonde reacts in surprise. Offended, he retorts that he's already 22 years old. Beside him, the masked man quietly mutters that he's 23. The girl excitedly declares herself a baby of 25 years old. Irritated, Now thinks they're older than him and still have zero manners. Either way, he sums up the situation. It's nothing more than a game. If they have a problem with him, they can settle it their way, through a battle. The blonde is holding a knuckle duster, the masked man wields a curved blade, and the girl has a can of drink in her hand, all ready for the confrontation. Concerned, Now calls out to CageMine sense. He tries to warn her that it's dangerous and that she should move away, but she remains absorbed in her work, not hearing anything. She begins drawing rapidly, and he asks if she can hear him. For a moment, the sky and the cherry blossom field remain peaceful. Suddenly, something thunderous erupts from within the trees. From the smoke emerges a tree monster marked with 2 stars and sharp teeth. Still confident, the girl changes priorities and shouts for the two of them to protect Lady Memori before anything else. In the air, a spiked mace swings toward Now, attached to a chain. With a precise kick, he deflects the attack. Smiling, the blonde, identified as Kano, charges forward with his knuckle duster. Now observes his attacks. They're far too repetitive and slow. He decides for now he'll block with his raised leg. With his leg in the air, he realizes he's been caught. From the side, the masked man mutters that he understands. Kano confirms it as well. With a precise strike, Nao's foot shoots forward, surrounded by blue energy. Spinning through the air, he passes straight between the two opponents. The two end up crashing into each other, tangled together. Desperate, Memori shouts both their names as she watches them collapse to the ground. Confused, Nao knocks the can from Memori's hand, trying to understand what kind of ability she possesses. He comments that the two have good coordination and are quite strong, although they don't come anywhere near Tateshi's level. Memori pours the drink from the can directly into Kano's mouth, revealing that it was a healing item. He groans, still dizzy, slowly coming back to his senses. Surprised, Now wonders if that can was actually a healing weapon. Kano gets back up in shock. Gathered on the ground, Yumaki, Kano, and Memori remain dazed while Now watches them standing. Kano mutters, is he still alive? Still dizzy, he asks, why wasn't he killed? Pointing toward CageMine, Now declares he's not like Tateshi. If they apologize to Professor CageMine and never start a fight again, he won't do anything else. He admits resignedly they probably can't even hear him right now. Kano is surprised by the answer. He explains that they need to drive away anyone who gets too close to Professor CageMine. Yumaki quietly reflects that this is why the people from the other group don't get beaten up by them either. Now retorts, he's already heard that the Thousand Lanterns Guild is kind of like the Mafia, but that doesn't mean they can go around harassing people. Injuring someone's eye is already crossing the line. From the side, CageMine continues drawing indifferent. Alarmed, Kano denies it. They weren't responsible for that. Suddenly, a deep and threatening sound echoes throughout the cherry blossom field. An alert appears in the sky, emergency mission occurring at 10 o'clock. Intrigued, Now mutters this is. Frightened, he turns around, surrounded by red warning banners. The alert spreads completely, emergency mission. Kano shouts it's time for the emergency mission. He orders everyone to run to the escape point as the group scatters. Surprised, Now can only stammer, hey wait, he shouts, calling for Professor CageMine and warning that it looks dangerous and they need to get out of there. But she remains absorbed in her work, completely unfazed. Irritated, he grumbles, seriously, this woman. Yumaki has already begun disappearing, casually saying goodbye. Indignant, Memori shouts, asking whether in a situation like this it shouldn't be ladies first. He simply responds casually, diversity, you know how it is. A root bursts out of the ground in front of Kano, blocking the warning. He shouts for Memori to hurry ahead, pushing her away. Confused, she shouts, asking what he's doing. Kano prepares himself, tense. He is thrown into the air as gigantic roots burst from the ground. Clenching his teeth, he grumbles, damn it, we'll have to find another escape point. Kano is thrown directly into the mouth of the monstrous tree. It swallows him whole. Confused, the creature sticks out its tongue as if disgusted. Carried by Now, Kano asks why he's doing this. Now, surprised, asks if there really is another escape point. Kano confirms that there is, already safe. Now orders, then take Professor CageMine and run. Kano asks what he intends to do. With his back turned, Now looks over his shoulder, determined. He declares he's going to defeat the enemy alone. Leaping toward the tree, he delivers a powerful kick, striking the creature head-on. Satisfied, he realizes his attacks are finally having an effect on the branches. But he recognizes the enemy is, after all, a 2-star monster. Frustrated, he admits he can't take it down with a single blow. Suddenly, more monstrous trees emerge all around them, roaring, and to make matters worse, there are even more nearby. He retreats to avoid being hit, gritting his teeth. Well, since it's come to this. Exhausted, Kano runs while carrying Cageman. He shouts in disbelief, "You've got to be kidding me." The trees around them are furious. Irritated, Kano complains, "Stop bringing so many monsters after you." Now retorts, equally irritated, "Shut up." He tried his best, but it didn't work. Isn't there another escape point? Kano shouts breathlessly, "There's still a long way to go." Running now asks if there isn't a closer escape point. Kano answers curtly, if there were one he would have found it already. Suddenly the two are grabbed by branches. Trapped, listening to the constant cracking of the tree around them, Cageman simply comments calmly without letting go of her tablet, "That's right." A beautiful illustration appears. Castles and cherry blossoms frame Mount Fuji, revealing part of the work she is concentrating on. A memory overlaps the scene amid blood and chaos. Someone thinks that they only wanted to see the cherry blossoms in bloom, but that place was actually a deadly game. Still trapped, now spits blood, feeling the branches tightening around him. The girl finally finishes her artwork. From the sky, a gigantic dragon descends, covered in stone scales and red eyes. It unleashes a blast of fire, completely engulfing the monstrous trees. The creature screams, consumed by flames. The fire spreads even further uncontrollably. Trapped inside their own burning branches, Kano and Now can only scream in surprise. Around them, reward notifications flash repeatedly, confirming the gain of petals every moment. Cageman apologizes, she only just finished finalizing her script. On the screen, the petal counter rises to 15. She explains that treats that appear during emergency missions are dangerous, but each one drops 5 cards so they can leave it to her. Still coughing, lying on the grass, the two slowly recover. Intrigued, someone asks, "Wait, wasn't she just a lackey of the Thousand Lanterns Guild?" Spitting blood now continues, curious. Professor Cageman, she seems strong, but what's the reason for that eye patch anyway? Confused, she simply says, "Huh." Not understanding the question, she answers simply because she thinks it looks cool. Exhausted and kneeling on the grass, now suddenly asks if he can quit his part-time job. The scene shifts to the illuminated city buildings at night. Everyone remains lying on the ground, exhausted after the battle. Cageman comments that it must be exhausting living as someone who is ordered around and beaten up every time, right? Why not join their guild, the Blue Shadows? Memori immediately refuses, "No way." Leaving the Thousand Lanterns Guild is even scarier. She adds, "Besides, you need at least 5 guildless players to establish a new one, right?" A diagram explains the mechanics. 5 figures join together, forming a complete team, successfully resulting in the creation of a guild. Memori teases her, since the professor is alone, she hasn't even managed to gather any members yet, has she? The comment hits Now hard, almost like a slap. In disbelief, Now asks if that's also a lie. She shows her tablet, revealing a fantastical drawing of herself holding up a guild trophy, and defends herself. Since it's only in her head, it doesn't count as a lie. Seriously, she mutters, but even so, a dark scene appears. The executives of the Thousand Lanterns Guild are all, at minimum, bronze rank. She reflects that she needs to rank up so she can face those guys as a newbie, but the screen shows Professor Cageman novice rank, now Tsurugi novice rank. He says that to reach bronze, you need a guild and must participate in a promotion mission, something he currently can't do. Smiling, Cageman praises him. He's quick to understand things. That's exactly why they're pursuing her, to prevent her from gathering members. Outside, someone declares she should just give up on founding a guild. Kneeling and remorseful, the trio apologizes. Even if they're killed, the persecution will continue anyway. It must leave a bitter taste in their mouths, but small pawns have no right to an opinion. Now remembers Tateshi's mocking words as his expression turns cold. In his thoughts, Now reflects he doesn't intend to play the hero of justice, but accepting this kind of logic really makes him furious. Determined, he proposes to the trio. If he protects them, will they agree to join the guild? Surprised, Memori blushes. Kano reacts in shock. Yumaki behind his mask is also surprised, all of them caught off guard by the proposal. Confused by the sudden silence, Now asks if he said something strange. The scene moves to the next day in Dotonbori, Osaka. The trio promises to leave the guild together with Now that very day. Alone on a bridge, he waits, noticing that the 3 are late. A new diagram recalls the hierarchy of the Thousand Lanterns Guild, highlighting the novice leader, probably weaker than Tateshi. Since this is real life, the police are also nearby and neither side wants to get arrested. Cageman offered to help the next day even though her own manga deadline was tight. Now refuses and asks her to focus on her work. He left Professor Cageman behind. Alone, he wonders, even so they're late. Now checks the location tracker on his friends list and finds the trio's 3 markers grouped together at Ebsubashi and Dotonbori. When he arrives there, he finds the 3 lying bloody inside the canal. He reacts in shock, horrified by the scene. A police officer shouts, "Hey you," as if he were chasing Now. When Now is about to respond, the man points a revolver directly at his head. Furious, the masked police officer shouts that no one is going to mess with his slave and fires. The attack hits Now, who reacts in shock, blood running down his forehead. Around them, civilians panic, shouting that the police have killed someone and run away in terror. A second police officer reprimands him, asking what he thinks he's doing. The other tells his colleague to shut up, assuring him that everything will be covered up as if it had never happened. Then the same man turns his own gun on himself and fires while hearing the cold declaration, "In real life, no one really dies." He collapses, covered in blood on top of Now. A text explains that the case, an armed man who shot and killed himself in the middle of the city center, is being attributed to the Thousand Lanterns Guild. Another text summarizes the general sentiment: they're crazy. Shocked by the scene, now feels his own power react. Blue energy gathers before him, taking the form of a blade of light. He easily dodges the projectile, recognizing his ability the enemy observes. As expected of Tateshi's disciple, he can even avoid being killed as soon as he respawns. He confidently comments that he has some good news and presses the barrel of the gun against Kano's mouth. A synchronization bar appears on the screen, matching 10 out of 10. He explains the mechanics. If they die at exactly the same time at the same rank, they almost always end up linked to each other afterward. Kano, with the gun pressed against his head, trembles, while Momori beside him prays in terror. Kairi declares his group's philosophy. Their lynching means killing the victim for real and reconciling only afterward in the afterlife. A title identifies the masked man, Hari Kairi, novice leader of the Thousand Lanterns Guild. Now remains silent, simply observing. Kairi then offers a deal. If he apologizes now and joins the Thousand Lanterns Guild, he will be forgiven, but since he caused trouble, the entrance fee rises to 50 million yen. A new emergency mission appears. Survive for 1 hour against the God of Water in the Central District with a 60-minute timer. A gigantic aquatic entity rises above the buildings, dominating the city sky, while Kairi stands just below, weapon raised. Kairi points his weapon and warns, if he doesn't intend to apologize, then he can simply die. Before anyone can react, now leaps forward with a precise kick. The man manages to deflect the kick in time, making now recoil. Still now thinks frustrated, damn, I thought that attack had landed. He discovers, shocked, that his opponent managed to block the attack using only his arm. Furious, Kairi curses with his weapon in hand while the trio remains crouched behind him. He declares, so you really don't intend to make peace. Now stares at him, serious and determined. A new mission appears on the screen. Survive for 1 hour against the God of Water in the center of the city with the timer already running. The aquatic creature rises enormous above the buildings. Throughout the streets, civilians run in panic, screaming that it's charging up to fire and that they should use the buildings as shields. A jet of water sweeps through the streets, destroying everything in its path. One of the fleeing people is swept away by the water. Relieved, one of them jokes that today's daily mission is just a game of dodging. The other adds that the water gun isn't even destroying anything. The street falls momentarily silent, submerged in water. One of them thinks that maybe they can escape simply by hiding. Suddenly, he becomes frightened, realizing that something is wrong. The water grabs his friend. It seems like the water is alive. He watches puddles of water transform into dragons, unable to understand what is happening. He swings his staff, trying to defend himself, and exclaims in disbelief, will this last for the entire hour? Leaning over a wall, he spots the chaos below and is stunned by what he sees. Intrigued, he wonders if those people really have time to kill each other in the middle of a mission. Kairi and now continue their fight. He grits his teeth and fires. His weapon begins reloading. Taking advantage of the opening, now charges forward with a flying kick. Kairi grabs Yumaki by the collar, using him as a shield. Trapped, he struggles, trying to break free. Unexpectedly, Yumaki uses his chain as support for now to brace himself against. This gives now a chance to kick the villain. Now we see the real reason behind all this anger. The poor guy has reached baldness level. He tries to fire his weapon, but now stops the shot with his foot and attempts to knock the weapon to the ground with a kick. Energy gathers around his boot, ready for the counterattack. The masked bald man fires once again, the barrel releasing an intense flash. Now dodges the bullet at high speed. Kairi orders coldly, hold him down. Kano leaps in front of now, his fist raised. He begs now to run away, now stares at him seriously without backing down, and quickly passes by Kano. He watches him in disbelief, asking if he's an idiot. A thought torments the trio. It's their fault. Kairi was the one who killed now in the real world. Even so, they were the ones who told Kairi where the meeting would take place. Still tormented, they wonder if he had really been waiting there just to help them leave the guild. Back in the confrontation, Kairi keeps his weapon pressed against Momori, now charges forward with a kick, trying to save her. In their thoughts, the trio acknowledges that he has every right to kill them. The kick strikes Kairi's arm, deflecting the shot. Even so, they are stunned. After everything, he is still giving them a choice. Kairi keeps Momori restrained, glaring angrily. Kano reacts in shock. The scene cuts to nighttime, a van parked in the middle of the forest. A phrase echoes, no one had ever been this kind to them. Now calm inside the vehicle, Momori teases Kano, laughing at his bruised face and joking that the senpai is way too scary. He grumbles that she could at least feel a little sorry for him. Drinking, she retorts that they shouldn't underestimate her. She even caught a disease from a client. Yumaki adds that he also developed a hernia at a young age from being forced to carry heavy loads. Kano comments melancholically that since childhood they've done nothing but compete to see who had the worst life. One of them confesses that he would like to be born into a normal family in his next life. Another dreams of working at a decent company. A third concludes that living a normal life really is difficult. They all silently agree. The three remain leaning against one another, exhausted in the darkness. Back to the confrontation, now leaps into the air with the masked man's weapon pointed at him. The enemy warns that he will attack as soon as now lands. Just as he is about to fire, a chain grabs his weapon. The shot passes right beside Nao's face. He almost dies again. Yumaki holds his glowing chain, concentrating energy. Momori takes advantage of the man's distraction to push him. Kano charges forward with a punch infused with blue energy, but Kairi manages to dodge at the last moment. He reacts in shock. Nao is already standing in front of him. A precise kick strikes the villain's chin. He is launched into the air while spitting blood. Suddenly, a pink light glows in Kairi's hand. Intrigued, Nao wonders what that light is. The explosion of light hits everyone and they all react in shock. Kairi mocks them. How dare they challenge him when they can't even use their own abilities. Nao is shocked. Abilities. Kairi reveals that he was the one who shot Nao in the head back in the real world. Several armed hands point at his head, shouting at him to move. One of them shoots Nao in the leg, causing him to collapse, bleeding. He screams in pain. Standing over him, the police officer coldly warns, "I'm not going to make things easier for you. I ruptured your femoral artery and you'll bleed to death within minutes." A new mission appears on the screen. Survive for 1 hour against the god of water in the center of the city with 41 minutes remaining. The enemy mocks him, telling him to enjoy this deadly game before he dies. The aquatic creature looms over him enormous while Nao grits his teeth and sweats. A memory appears in his mind, his sister smiling and hugging a stuffed animal, saying that he's back. His eyes fill with tears. He scolds himself. He's an idiot. He knows he can't die again, but he became overconfident after leveling up. The status screen displays his attributes, already showing his second limit break. He remembers that after surviving Tateshi, he thought he could defeat anyone weaker than that. Lying on the ground with the god of water rising before him, Kano lands a punch infused with energy, protecting Nao, who is crouched beneath him. This surprises Nao. He never expected to receive help from someone who betrayed him. Kano desperately shouts Momori's name. She comes running, saying that she's already taking care of it and makes Nao drink her miraculous liquid. Momori warns that a fatal injury cannot be completely healed. The formal mission appears on the screen. Survive for 1 hour against the god of water in the center of the city. Kano is surprised and complains that since this is a war of attrition, the creature never stops splitting apart. Yumaki charges through the air, spinning his chains, and manages to restrain the god of water with them. Excited, Kano celebrates, and Yumaki suggests that maybe they won't even need to move anymore. While Momori helps him drink, Nao asks what these so-called abilities are. No one knows how to answer, neither Kano nor the others. Thoughtful, he analyzes the situation. That pink attack was different from the others. If they can't dodge it again, they'll be hit once more. Could there be a clue to defeating that man? He recalls everything: the weapon's reload, the shot to his leg, the confrontation with the masked men, and the word that kept echoing in his head, anything. Kairi reloads his weapon and a loading notification appears. Suddenly, Nao has an epiphany. I know. Then, water begins rising from the ground. A warning shows 40 minutes remaining. Yumaki notices, alarmed, that water is bubbling up from the floor itself. Kano, alarmed, notices that one of the small dragons has disappeared. He looks around in confusion, remembering that the mission against the god of water is still active. From above, the entire downtown area appears completely flooded. Intrigued, he wonders where the giant dragon went. Underwater, the three realize in shock that they are inside the creature's own open mouth. It lunges with its mouth open, trying to swallow all four of them, but now reacts in time and saves everyone, who cling to one another. The god of water rises again and roars. As they flee, Kano screams that they're going too fast and that his arm is going to be ripped off. Nao replies that if they defeat this thing, the injury will heal anyway, and decides right there to settle the score with Kairi. Frightened, Momori asks if they shouldn't look for a safe place first. Nao explains that Kairi is hiding precisely at the safest point, and this is their chance to attack. Kano asks, confused, how he knows that. Furious, Nao fires back because he's the one who's truly terrified right now. Somewhere in the city, one of the men is swallowed by the water dragon, screaming in pain. Kairi is seen running across a walkway with his weapon reloading. One of the men swings an umbrella at one of the dragons, trying to defend himself. Kairi charges toward him and orders him to get out of the way. He kicks the man. The man is thrown off the walkway, falling into the water below and screaming. Kairi relaxes, placing his hands behind his head, satisfied it's safe here. In his thoughts, he explains the mechanics. After some time, the stage begins to flood and the giant dragon starts moving, just like in a shark movie. His eyes narrow, now all that's left. Mockingly, someone thanks him for revealing where the safe place is. Suddenly, the trio and Nao carrying Momori burst in right behind him. Nao retorts that it's his first time there, so he genuinely thanks him. Nao lands a precise kick, sending Kairi flying downward, but his leg begins to tingle. It seems he injured it. Momori curses Kairi, calling him half-dead. Kairi growls and Nao calmly retorts that he can shoot him if he's angry. Kairi glares furiously. Nao smiles. I knew you couldn't, didn't you? Nao explains. The cooldown after using an ability is longer than after firing a normal shot. Exhausted, sitting on the ground, Kairi watches his weapon still reloading. Provocatively, Nao continues. If he had an area of effect stun ability, he should have used it first. It was the fear of that possibility that made him lose. Furious, Kano declares that Kairi has already killed them several times in the real world, suggesting that they gang up on him 4 against 1 and beat him to death. Behind him, Yumaki wields a scythe attached to a chain. Nao stops him, warning that beating up a defenseless guy 4 against 1 isn't right. Kano protests that this doesn't mean they should just stand there and wait. With his head lowered, he agrees. Nao then reveals that he will impose a handicap on himself and fight Kairi alone. Kano reacts in surprise. The villain is also surprised. Smiling now adds the condition: if he wins, he'll take the three of them with him. Kairi becomes furious and shouts, asking if Now is making fun of him. He aims his weapon at the group. Now lands a powerful kick, sending Kairi flying. Now lands in a crouch. He spins and delivers another precise kick. Shocked, Kairi thinks that Now is faster than before. From a distance, Kano watches and mutters that he understands. While they were fleeing from the giant dragon earlier, Now took advantage of the opportunity to gain experience, leveling up right there, all for this moment. He declares firmly, it's precisely because he's a one-star player that he knows the true value of leveling up. A memory flashes, a monstrous rabbit snarling, the damage reduced to just 1 point, and him running around thin and weak, just like the one-star he had always been. The final blow strikes Kairi directly, sending him flying backward. Suddenly Now becomes startled by something. He realizes too late that the entire city around them is submerged. Kairi's foot slips over the edge of the building and he falls unconscious. Desperate, Now stretches out his arm, trying to reach him in time. Their hands almost touch until finally he manages to grab him firmly. Holding Nao's arm, Kairi laughs mockingly. He fell right into the trap. Nao becomes irritated, realizing his mistake. Kairi declares darkly that he is going to take Nao with him to his death. Nao thinks tensely, if I kick him here, he'll die, but if I go down with him while he's still holding his weapon. The two are falling straight into the water dragon's mouth. Nao is surprised when he looks back and sees that his friends are helping him with a chain wrapped around his leg. Finally, the monster attacks, and thank God it only gets the bald guy. The only thing left behind is his arm. Now safe, Momori says that they're saved, but Nao remains serious and silent. Kano watches him quietly. He simply says thank you. A flash passes through Nao's eyes, echoing in his mind a similar thank you that Tateshi said long ago. He smiles. A warning appears on the screen: never do something like that again. Below it, the mission against the God of Water remains active, with 39 minutes remaining. Well, that's it for today. If you enjoyed the recap, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. See you next time.